Have you ever spent an entire Saturday working on something and at the end of the day, you thought, what exactly did I accomplish? You researched, you watched videos, maybe you listened to 3 podcasts while you were doing everything else. You saved some properties, you downloaded yet another guide. You probably have 17 browser tabs open right now. You have been very busy. But here's the question. What is different now than it was when you started? Because I've noticed something, particularly with people who tell me they want to invest in real estate. Some people spend years and years getting ready. They know the terminology. They follow the investors. They've listened to the podcasts, and they can probably explain a cap rate, but they've never actually decided what they're looking for. And that's when being busy can start looking a whole lot like progress. I think this happens because activity, being busy, feels good. It feels like we're doing something. We can point to what we've been doing, like you've read the book. I watched the webinar. I researched the market. I joined every Facebook group that had to do with real estate investing. I listened to multiple podcasts, and none of those things are bad. I mean, they're good. I do all of them myself. The problem is when learning becomes the thing we're doing instead of something that helps us decide where we're going to do or what we're going to do. Here's what I mean. Think about when you plan a vacation. You can look at travel sites, watch videos, you get all the information about the resort and the airfare, but finally you have to pick your destination. You may be deciding, are you going to take a family vacation, go to an amusement park, or are you going to take a more relaxing beach vacation or a mountain vacation? So there's a lot of research that goes into, not always, but sometimes a lot of research goes into where you should go. Is it family friendly? If you have pets, all of the things that you take into consideration. Do you have to fly? Do you have to drive? Do you want to fly? Do you want to drive? And at some point, you have to pick your destination and you have to pick how you're getting there, how many days. You have to make a decision. So all the research in the world and listening and looking at different websites isn't going to give you the vacation. It makes you feel good that you're looking, but you really haven't made the decision about going, about doing the doing. Otherwise, you're not really planning a vacation, are you? You're really watching other people be on vacation and doing what you want to be doing. Researching in itself, whether it's through your vacation, a new job, or real estate investing, a lot of research and a lot of watching podcasts and going on different websites, that's keeping us busy and it makes us feel good. It makes us feel like we are making progress. But I want to ask you, are you really making progress? Or are you simply delaying the decision to book that vacation or change jobs or start investing in real estate? That's the challenge. So when you find yourself watching another podcast, reading another book, asking ChatGPT about vacations, about road trips, whatever it is, at some point you have to stop and say, okay, I've been doing a lot of busy work trying to figure out what direction I want to go. And it feels good. I feel like I'm making progress, but are you really making progress? I would challenge you. Are you making progress or are you simply delaying making a decision about vacation, retirement, a job, daycare? I mean, you can research things to death and it feels good that you feel like you're getting a lot of information, but are you just keeping busy rather than taking action? Our financial decisions can work exactly the same way. Over the years, I've met a lot of people at different networking groups, and I hear kind of the same thing over and over. They'll tell me, oh, I watch your podcast or listen to your podcast, or I watch your YouTube video, or yes, I got that book, or they keep going to networking events and talking to different people, and then they are constantly researching and where should I buy and well, maybe I need to go here. Some people will just continue to go to networking events over and over and over or show up on, I do a webinar every month and I'll have the same exact people And they're learning, and that's great, but they're staying busy and they're not actually taking action. I've talked about this in other videos where it's not really fear, but it comes down to self-doubt. Because the reason that we feel like we need to keep busy is it feeds that self-doubt. Like, I'm not ready. I haven't learned the market. I don't know the steps. And so rather than trying to actually do the steps or working with a mentor, if we're feeling that unsure, we just keep researching and being busy. And maybe we even drive around neighborhoods and we always have an uncertainty that's behind us. So when I'm working with people or talking to people, I just ask, what book, what podcast, what YouTube channel, or even what does ChatGPT tell you about keeping busy and always having these activities? And it kind of goes back to making decisions, whether you're researching, going on vacation, if you're researching what bank to go to, if you're researching, should I get an LLC or an LTD? It doesn't really matter what it is that we are interested in. We keep ourselves busy with constantly researching, constantly listening to podcasts, watching videos, reading books, trying to figure out what the market is telling us, listening to the news, listening to different people with a different message, which then kind of compounds the whole, I'm keeping busy, but I'm not taking action. One person comes to mind that has been following me, and I have to have conversations every now and then with this person for the last 7 years. They go to networking events. They read every book that I've talked to them about. Like I said, they follow me on social media. If I do an event or a webinar, they're always there. And they have yet to pull the trigger on purchasing their first investment property. And after 7 years, I can guarantee you they have heard every scenario that I know about in purchasing a rental property. So for someone like that, they've kept busy. So they feel that they're kind of in the game, if you will. They've just kept busy, 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 but they've never taken that busyness because the busyness makes them feel like they're making progress towards their goal of buying their first investment property. But in reality, the busyness that they've had has prevented them from taking any action because they're so busy. They're so wrapped up in learning and unsure and have that self-doubt that even though they talk to someone like me, they've talked to other people that know just as much as I do, if not more, they just kept themselves busy. And when I talk to people like that who have been researching and being busy with all of this research finding, I start asking them questions. And I'm sometimes surprised by how much they know because they've spent so much time learning. They know about neighborhoods because they've researched them. They know about what other investors, including myself, are doing. They've literally, some people I know have watched hundreds of videos about real estate investing. They've read a ton of books about real estate investing. They know the lingo, the terminology. And then you know what? I just ask them this very simple question. What kind of property are you actually looking for? And they do not know. Let me say that again. I'll ask them what they've done all of this research. They've kept busy collecting information, reading books, listening to podcasts, and I'll ask them a simple question. What type of property are you looking for? And they'll just look at me and they'll say, I don't know. I find that very interesting. Do you? Another question I might ask, what area are you considering investing in? And they're still deciding. They're still thinking about it. They're still researching. They're keeping busy about it. And I've asked them, have you looked at any actual properties yet? And they say, no. Let me share this with you. That's when I realized they really haven't been working on buying a rental property for all this time, for 7 years. They've been learning about buying a rental for all those years, but that's not the same thing. So they've been busy learning about real estate investing, but that busyness makes them feel good, makes them feel like they're making progress, but they really haven't made the progress towards buying their first rental property because one, they don't know what type of property they want to buy. And number two, they don't know where they want to buy. They can't even answer those questions. And I don't think people do this because they're lazy. Actually, it's quite the opposite. They're responsible people who want to understand the process. They want to understand what they're doing before they make that financial decision. And that's reasonable because you need to learn about real estate investing before you make a financial decision about it. But there comes a point where the next book or the next podcast isn't going to make the decision for you. The next YouTube video, even ChatGPT isn't going to make the decision for you. And I certainly can't make the decision for you either. Eventually, all of that busyness that you've been collecting, that information, it has to become useful. And that's what I want you to think about. The distinction of being busy and getting the information and then actually using the information to move you forward for progress. So the busyness might make you feel like you are making progress, but the information you're collecting has to become useful so that you can apply it to moving forward. So ask yourself this, is what I'm doing helping me make a decision, or is it helping me postpone one? So I've been thinking of a very simple way to tell the difference. If you're spending time consuming the information about something you say you want to do, eventually that information should produce something. So you're consuming information, and then that information needs to become useful enough so that you actually can produce something. Here's what I mean by that. You see, I have these two columns. In the first column, we have learn, which we can also talk about being consumed, and then moving forward or producing. So when we watch a video, we're learning, we're consuming information, but to move forward, we're actually looking at and analyzing properties. When we research markets, that is consuming, getting more information. We move forward when we take that information and we start narrowing our search area of where we want to invest. When we look at learned financing, we're learning about financing and the types of financing that we might be able to get. Then we can look at what our options are, what your options are for actually using financing to purchase rental properties and what type of financing is available to you. And then as you read more investing books, again, you're consuming, you're learning, but you're consuming information. And producing means that you're defining a strategy. Maybe that strategy is multifamily. Maybe that strategy is single family. If you're like me, you want to define a strategy that makes sense for you. And that is how we move forward. That is how we produce. Now notice I didn't say you have to buy anything. So analyzing a property is progress. Eliminating an area because it doesn't fit what you're looking for can be progress. Or even talking to someone and discovering that you're not ready yet can even be progress, because now something is different. You know something about your decision that you didn't know before, and that's important. It prevents progress from becoming take action at all costs. Let me show you what I mean. You don't need a complicated system for this. If you've spent the last month, last 6 months, or last year learning about something, real estate investing, taking a vacation, a new job, whatever it is, I want you to take out a piece of paper and write down 2 questions. Number 1, what did I consume as far as information, and what did it produce? That information, how did it become useful? If you've consumed hours of information and can't identify a decision, a conversation, something you've analyzed or something you've eliminated or something you've created, that's useful information too. Then I want you to write down, what did it produce? And that's the question you should pay attention to. What did all of that information produce for you? So if you're like me, I like to put it on paper to see what I'm learning, what I'm consuming, and then what does that thing that I'm consuming or learning actually produce? So if I take my trusted yellow pad and I write, what did I consume? That's why I like the yellow pad, because you don't need a complicated system for this. If you've spent the last month learning about something, just take out a piece of paper like this and then write down these 2 questions. What did I consume? And then what did it produce? So if you've consumed hours of information and can't identify a decision or a conversation or something that you've analyzed, then something you've eliminated or something you've created, then that's useful information as well. And here's the question that I pay attention to. I want to know that whatever I'm consuming, books, podcasts, market research, did it produce a strategy or an area to invest? So I always want to make sure that whatever I'm spending hours and activity, staying busy, this is where we stay busy. But if busy doesn't produce anything, then that's kind of the failure to make a decision, or maybe making a decision of not taking any action. So you want to look at what are you consuming, and then from all of that, what is it producing? So the next time you catch yourself saying, I'm working on it, I want you to finish the sentence. What exactly are you working on? And what will be different when you're finished? Because being busy is easy to measure. You can log how many hours you watched videos or listened to podcasts, how many books that you have read, the podcasts that you've downloaded, the properties that you've saved when you've been doing your neighborhood research. But progress is different. So what we were just talking about was being busy, but progress is different. Progress changes something, and it changes something for you. Maybe you made a decision. Maybe you decided real estate investing was not for you. Or maybe you said that it was for you. Maybe you ruled something out. Like, you don't want to do multifamily. You only want to do single family, or vice versa. Maybe you ask a better question. How can I get the best tax benefits? Maybe you finally looked at a real opportunity instead of another example on YouTube. If nothing changed, you may have just been busy, but you didn't necessarily make progress. And that's the distinction I want to leave you with. So you can do all of this activity for research and collecting information, consuming, but you're not producing. And if you spend a lot of time learning about real estate, but you're still trying to decide whether it actually belongs in your financial future, that's one of the reasons that I did create Build Income Beyond Your Paycheck. And the goal of that free webinar is not to convince you to buy a rental. That is not why I created it. It's help you to move from consuming information about this very topic, about real estate investing, to getting clear about whether it makes sense for you. Because at some point, the question isn't how much more you can learn, it's what you're going to do with what you already know. So you've consumed. Now, how can you make that information useful for you? And you can find the link below to our masterclass.